Stop. You're going to take someone's eye out. Besides, you're saying it wrong. It's Levi.
The curses and spells used in the books are actual curses and spells, which when read by a human being, risk conjuring evil spirits into the presence of the person reading the text. That there is a direct quote from the mouth of Reverend Dan Rehill. He runs St. Edward Catholic School in Tennessee, a school where the Harry Potter books have recently been banned from the library and the campus. See, Rehill doesn't just believe that witchcraft exists, he believes something that would make the pitchforks of the Salem witch trials shudder. That should children get their hands on the sordid tales of Harry, Ron, and Hermione, that it's a one-way ticket to creating a new generation of witches and, well, wizards. But the reality is, Mr. Rehill is hopping onto a bandwagon that's long since been filling up.
To guard over our circle and to witness our rites.
Witchcraft is the fastest growing offshoot of paganism and neo-paganism today.
What you're watching is a documentary called Harry Potter Witchcraft Repackaged. Created by Christian film company Jeremiah Films, it's essentially a propaganda piece in the crusade against everything Potter. From the moment that J.K. Rowling's first Potter novel hit store shelves in 1997, Harry has had substantially more to deal with than Horcruxes and Voldemort. I grew up entirely enamored with the books and films, and to this day still am. They are fantastic, but what I wasn't aware of as a child was how incessantly controversial they had become until I found a list of most banned books in American history. The series has detractors of all kinds. Many decry the depictions of violence in the series, arguing that it encourages aggressive behavior amongst children. Some argue that the books encourage mistreatment of animals and wildlife, and some have gone as far as arguing that the term muggle is unflattering derogatory commentary on the lower class or even certain races. But most of the objections are, unsurprisingly, based in religion, and some stretch the bounds of reason more than others. Richard Abanes of the Fundamentalist Christian Church, in response to repeated burnings of the books in the early 2000s, pointed to scripture as their protest's foundation. Deuteronomy 18:10 states that witches and charmers and those that attempt to become them are an abomination. But he's not alone. The United Emirates have banned the books entirely. Schools across the country have struck Potter from their records. Entire states have gone head-to-head with the novels. The American Library Association places Harry Potter near the very top of the list of most banned books in American history. Most people look at Potter's tale and see heart, friendship, triumph, valuable lessons that kids and adults alike can relate to and connect with. So what's going on here? Well, believe it or not, it turns out the anti-Potter crusades are actually using legal grounds for the bannings, or at least they think they are. It turns out witchcraft is a church and state issue. No, seriously. Witchcraft is a legal issue for the courts, and nearly all of the arguments boil down to one word: Wicca.
Por el que un simple ser humano llega a convertirse en un semidios.
Wicca and Harry Potter on the surface seem intertwined. It is a recognized religion. Those that practice Wicca often believe in a horned god and a divine goddess, and operate in a relatively decentralized religion, meaning that there's a ridiculous amount of ways you can practice and follow the teachings of Wicca, because there's so many of them. What makes Wicca interesting, at least in the context of Harry Potter, is that almost all practices of Wicca involve rituals of magic. You've probably seen the symbolism in countless films and television shows. It is a Wiccan ritual symbol, and it's a symbol that's at the very center of the practice itself. During a full moon, Wiccans will come together to conjure and cast spells. Yes, spells, using magical tools like broomsticks and cauldrons, while often wearing robes. At this point, I think it's fair to assume that you see some similarities making themselves clear. The Fundamentalist Christian Church, smaller, more extreme Catholic groups, and the Protestant Church are all fairly outspoken about the religion. Witchcraft, as they see Wicca being, is a corrupt practice and very much so a sin in their eyes, and those religions have a history of ousting material that represents the religion. They believed the Potter books did just that. Religious and social groups around the world believed and still do that the books will push children towards witchcraft and into the dark world of magic should they read them. So, some of them literally brought it to the courts. The case against the books was that because they display the teachings of a real religion, Wicca, that they should be banned from public schools in order to maintain the separation of church and state. The ideals that keep government and religion separate entities. It didn't work. with one judge going as far as stating that if we threw out every piece of literature with witches in it, we'd have to throw out Cinderella and Wizard of Oz as well. But that didn't stop the anti-Potter groups. Instead, some have turned to the nuance of the novels to make their point.
What is that?
What we're here for. See that? That's unicorn blood, that is.
See this scene? It's a moment from the Sorcerer's or Philosopher's Stone. Voldemort drinks unicorn blood to sustain his life, an unforgivable crime in the wizarding world, seen as the destruction of something pure, a crime only the most heinous of individuals are said to commit. An anti-Potter group hoping to have the book removed from children's curriculum wasn't amused. Harry's world says that drinking dead animal blood gives power, satanic human sacrifice, and Harry's powerful blood brings new life. Demon possession is not spiritually dangerous, and that passing through fire, contacting the dead and conversing with ghosts, others in the spirit world, and more is normal and acceptable. That strange run-on quote comes from one particular pushback against the books, using the unicorn scene as context. And every passage of the series has been picked apart in this very way. But the miscalculation, even in the successful bans of Rowling's work, was and continues to be clear. Book banning, burning, and backlash is something that's as old as literature itself, but what was unique and still is about the Potter bannings is that it exists now in a world that's interconnected, in a world that knows unequivocally exactly what's happening, and that it's happening to one of the most beloved series in modern literature. There is ubiquitous awareness. When the most banned book in American history exists alongside Twitter and Facebook, and when that series of books has sold more than 500 million copies and is supported by millions of fans, your movement to rid the world of it might face some resistance. This image is the cover of The Onion, a play on the protest of groups believing that the books were a terrible influence in the hands of children. A speechwriter for Bush around the same time claimed that the White House denied Rowling a Medal of Freedom because the books encouraged witchcraft. The context of these two examples: for every person that wanted Potter off the shelves, there were 100 that waited in line to buy a copy and saw the anti-Potter movements as humorous. And today, as the bannings continue, we're able now more than ever to formulate our own opinions, to gain access to the books on our own, with or without the permission of our teachers or public libraries. So while the Archdiocese of Rome had their official exorcist come out and tell the world that the books had the marking of the underworld, stores across the globe were, and still are, stocking their shelves full of Potter. Because in the days of social media, we now, more so than ever, have the power to choose what we read and engage with. I think the reason I'm so drawn to this particular issue is that I find it all to be entirely antithetical to what literature, especially children's literature, is supposed to be about. These banning movements seem to forget context. Harry Potter made reading cool again for everyone. It brought reading into the limelight of popular culture in a way few children's novels ever had. It opened the door for an entire genre to repopularize itself. But most importantly, it helped shape the lives of millions of kids. And isn't that the point? Aren't we supposed to learn how vital it is to never give up, like Harry? Aren't we supposed to understand that bravery is always an option, like Ron? Isn't the point of youth literature to learn without knowing you're being taught a thing? Forget youth literature, isn't that the point of art? New perspectives? Isn't the point to stop fearing the unknown and embrace it both intellectually and in life? I, like every other kid, have tried, after reading Potter, to cast every spell in the book. And yet, surprisingly, after soaking up every word, I didn't become a witch or wizard, I just became better. That is a wrap on today's episode of Nerdstalgic. If you enjoyed the video, press that like button down below. And if you haven't yet done so, press subscribe. That way you won't miss any uploads to this channel. Also hit the little bell next to the subscribe button. That just makes sure you're notified when I upload to this channel. That way you really won't miss a thing. So press subscribe and the little bell. And on your screen right now are 2 more episodes of Nerdstalgic. If you want to see more from me in this channel, you can click on either of those. And I will see you guys in the next video.